Mrs. Susan Opok Tumusiime, who is the ED of FAWE, is our super soul sister this particular night. And of course, my name is Rowena Kajumba. I get excited. I meet women all over. You know, they inspire me to inspire you as well. So that is what this show is meant for. And thank you so much for joining us yet again for Super Soul Sisters. You're welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for making time.
Yes, here I am.
Yes.
It's exciting to come and speak to the public.
Yes, that is very
Yes,
true.
and
Now, before we get into FAWE, of course, which has a
Yes.
very good cause for that matter, and before we get into who you are now, yes, let's get back to knowing Susan. The Susan who was a little child, Susan who was a baby, without knowing what Susan would be today. So when we talk about Susan Opok, who are we rather talking about? Were you born to, where, and the time?
Wow, many questions.
Yes.
Yes, Susan Opok. I will leave the Tumusiime for now because
yes.
you want to know the little Susan.
Yes.
Yes, I was born to a gentleman from Gulu, then northern Uganda. He was an architect, engineer Peter Paul Opok. One of the educated men of the times because he went to Chambogo, then was sent to Cambridge,
Nice.
in the university. So he was an educated man, outgoing, loving,
Yes.
and he married a Mugisu woman from Bali. So I'm a mix of an Acholi, a
And a
Mugisu.
Mugisu.
I lived a good life as a young child. My father was working for the East African community. So being born in Kampala.
Yes.
Then
Oh, you were born in Kampala?
I was born in
Okay.
Kampala. And then we went to begin nursery in Arusha. My father working for the East African community, then I started my nursery education in Arusha, went to international school in Arusha. So from Arusha, went to live in Nairobi and sent to school in Kisumu, and then eventually went to live in Mombasa before coming back to Uganda after the overthrow of Amin. Yeah, so virtually I was exposed early to many things,
Yes.
Interestingly, when I was in primary 3, my father sent us to come and study, my sister and I, to come and study at Namagunga Primary School.
Oh, wow.
So for the year, my uncle then was the executive director or managing director of the Uganda Airlines. So we came and lived in Uganda for 1 year and then returned to go to Mombasa.
So before that, you were in Kampala, went to be with your
Arusha.
father in Arusha.
Yes.
Then you came back for your primary 3 in Uganda.
Yes.
For just about a year.
Yes, and I flew Air France at that time.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
If you say I was in Uganda, I was born in Uganda, so I
Yes.
imagine that my parents at the time were living here.
Here, yes.
So then when my dad got the job in Arusha with the East African community, then we relocated
yes.
to Arusha. And that's
Okay.
where I began my nursery school, early primary school,
Yes.
and was able to move around.
So where did you go? Which schools did you go to?
I went to Arusha School International School. I went to Aga Khan Primary School in Mombasa. I went to Maseno Girls Primary School in Kisumu, and then eventually came to Shimoni Demonstration School
Yes.
in Kampala.
Yes. And then when you went back?
That was P3.
That was P3.
Yes, Namagunga was really primary 3.
Yes.
So having started with the nursery school in Arusha, I went to Arusha International School. Then P3 came to Namagunga Primary School. At the end of P3, went to Aga Khan Primary School in Mombasa, then Maseno Girls Primary School in Kisumu.
Okay.
Yes.
So, are you the only child?
No. My father was a polygamist, so we are very many. My mother has 5 children.
Okay.
Yes, but my father's children were about 20, 24.
I like that we're all in the same ranges, eh? Everyone is like, yeah,
The
probably
polygamists
20-something.
of the day.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
So, moving around a lot, did this affect you as a child? How did you cope with moving a lot? Of course, with your siblings and, you know, being between the East African region and your parents. What was that like for you as a child?
I'm not sure that I really thought about it because it went smooth. And I grew up as a normal child.
Yes.
It was exciting at the time because, you know, even when we lived in Arusha, weekends we would drive to Nairobi and, you know, see the animals on the way. We learned about crossing borders. When we went to, you know, Maseno Girls, it was a boarding school. You know, it was my first time. No, it was the second time because it was after Namagunga. So life just picked on. It was interesting how things moved and how things were done.
Yes.
And when we went to Mombasa before coming to Uganda, returning, I think it was also interesting because, I mean, Mombasa is, you know, the beach, the sea,
yes.
you know. So it was great. And having a father who was working, who was providing, I mean, our lives were easy.
Yes.
It was, it was
You didn't
good
really
life.
think about it then as a child. You
It
actually
was, you
having
know, it
a
was
ball.
just fun.
Yes.
It was fun, and, you know, I think we enjoyed ourselves.
Yes. So then you
ourselves.
finished primary school from
Shimoni Demonstration School,
okay,
because
okay,
that was in 79 when we returned.
when you returned, okay.
And I remember they were looking for schools for us. It was very interesting. They gave us exams. I remember we went to East Kololo. They gave us exams and we didn't do very well. Went to Nakasero, then came to Shimoni. So my dad distributed us.
Yes.
A few went to East Kololo, some went to Nakasero Primary School, some of us went to Shimoni.
Yeah.
And I mean, P6, P7, did our exams, passed, and went to secondary.
So where did you go there in secondary
I
school?
went to Sacred Heart Girls' School in Gulu. And the reason that my dad took my sisters and I to Sacred Heart was that he wanted us to learn the culture of the Acholi.
Okay.
Having lived out and everywhere,
Yeah.
he said we needed to learn. And on that, he also ensured that every holiday we would go to the village. And today, you know, at the time it was sometimes they want us to go to the village. It wasn't very nice at times, but now I appreciate what he did, because we the girls, my father's girls, speak Acholi well. The boys are a bit, you know, so...
The boys are younger?
Yes, it's a mix, really.
It's
a mix. But I think for the girls it was intentional.
Yes.
Which is good, or was good. And so, we fit in very well within the Acholi
What was that
culture.
like? Because now you've changed environments. And you're probably still adjusting now. Maybe you've gotten used to Shimoni. And then they move you. They say, we're going all the way back home for you to go to a school that you are that you are attached to in a sense, or should be attached to in a sense, and it's a boarding school.
Boarding school, yes.
What was that like for you?
I mean, I think, and I want to believe that, sometimes when you reflect, you note that today's children seem to be focused on certain, specifics. We were very open.
Yes.
We were very open, and Sacred Heart School was a good school. It was a girls' school founded by nuns, Catholic school. I'm Catholic. So we fitted in. It was nice. It was a normal school, and the school is not too far from where my grandfather's home was. So we would interact with uncles, we would interact with cousins. But also, interestingly, from where the school is to where our village is, was about maybe 10 kilometers or so. Yeah. And sometimes, those days we had the train. So we would board the train from Lacho. There's a center called Lacho where the hospital is today, Lacho Hospital. We would board up to the village. And sometimes when the train wasn't there, we would walk,
Yeah.
you know, carry our things and walk.
And walk,
So,
yes.
you know, it was, we would go talking, and before you
Yeah.
know it, you've
You've,
reached,
yes.
because grandma is there. And I mean, we would spend the holiday, return to school.
Nice.
At some point, we would come to Kampala. And those days, there was the night bus.
Yeah.
So we would utilize the night bus to come to Kampala. Of course, the roads were not too good, but we would, you know, come and have holiday here.
That was the
So that
options
was life,
really at the
yes.
time.
So
Yes.
yeah, I do not think that we really thought so much about what is happening, and we
So
we
did you
lived
spend
life.
much time with most of your siblings? What was that like? Or
No, we were all together. I mean, we would be apart probably a holiday, but
Yes.
still come back together,
Okay.
because it was between Kampala and
what was
Gulu.
that like, coming back home and finding yourselves back home, and you know?
It was interesting because the mothers and daddy were here, and my father was a very loving, you know. Recently, my sister made us remember that, you know, he empowered us because he believed in education. And like I said, he was educated, you know, early. And so he encouraged us, made sure that we all went to school. All his children are educated, which is a trend that he set. So that in itself is a plus, is a plus for us. And yes, we are happy.
Yes.
All of us are educated, boys and girls.
And girls, yeah.
Interestingly, our mothers are from everywhere. We have my mothers in Tanzania, we have mother in Kenya, we have here, so
Yeah, you sort of the
and
cultures.
that in its
and
yes,
then,
in essence, that also I think helped to open up our minds
yes.
to know that things are different, people are different, but at the same time that family can be whoever.
Yes, that is very
Yes,
true.
you know, it's like
That is true.
today you hear I have a wife, or there is somebody, or
And
there's a brother.
you never reacted to this kind of thing growing up?
No.
Okay, because you knew it was bound to happen, maybe.
Like I said, I don't think we really thought about it deeply.
That's true.
It was just life.
It's the kids today that ask a lot of questions.
Yes, it's the kids today that ask questions.
Yes.
I mean, we lived in Kololo, you know, so it was life.
It was life. Yes.
So I think that also helped us to become the people that we are.
Sure.
Not angry, not you know, objective, and seeing things as
No,
they
no,
are.
no kind of, you know.
You know.
So when you were at Sacred Heart, what kind of child were you, or student? I'm assuming you had a
Wow.
good time.
Yes, because of Sacred Heart, I kind of got into, you know, being very humble and religious. You know, Catholics with our rosaries and
Yeah.
doing the right things. I was a plump young girl, and you know, I keep telling people that to this day I don't eat pork, not because of anything, but you know, people say, okay, you eat pork, you'll be fat like a pig. You know,
Yeah, and you're
so it
relating
was
to
like,
how.
yes, so
Yeah.
being plump, I think I still am plump, kind of. And so I lived a generalized life. I was good in class, and my father praised me for that. He knew that, you know, she would do well, she would do well.
Yes. Were you in
And
like any clubs or other extra activities?
it
in
was
school?
just, you know, the Young Christian Association. Those days there was YCS.
Yes.
Then we did a bit of baking, you know. They would help us to bake. Then, yeah, it was mainly Christian clubs, really.
Were you a
And
leader in any way?
in primary, actually, at Shimon Demonstration School, I was a prefect for the young people. When I went to secondary, I wasn't, lower secondary, I wasn't a leader. However, at senior 5, I went to Wanyange Girls, and I was made a deputy head girl and, and a house prefect. Now, there came a challenge in that I wasn't able, because I was taking biology, chemistry, and geography, and there were not adequate teachers in Wanyange. So after one term, I was transferred to Trinity College Nabingo.
Ah, okay.
And because they didn't have BCG,
You had to change.
I had to change to head history, economics, and divinity. And this was because between senior 1 and senior 2, I wasn't able to do physics because in one term, we had 5 teachers coming. You know, one teacher coming for 1-2 weeks goes,
And then
you know,
another
so
one,
there was
like,
confusion.
Yes, yes. Oh, also at Nabingo?
That was in Sacred Heart,
Okay.
the O level. I really wanted to do science. And I was able to take on biology and chemistry. Chemistry was my best subject. Yeah, but...
so this is what you decided to do in A level?
A level.
Okay.
Yes. And I think I struggled a bit. Nonetheless, at the end of the day, I got an A in economics.
Oh, wow.
So that just reaffirms that I'm bright.
That's true.
Yes.
Regardless of
regardless
all,
of all
the
these things. Yes. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, I went to university on government scholarship.
Oh, nice.
Which was
That's
good after
so,
that
so
change.
I know it took you a while to adjust to
I believe so.
To the arts.
I believe so.
And thank God there was economics. So now, when you adjusted, and this is now second term.
Yes.
And you're starting. They've
You're
allowed
in a new
you,
school.
Yes, they've allowed you to do your second term.
Yes.
With a changed combination.
I remember when we did the mocks, history was, to date, I'm not a historian. History was the biggest challenge for me, yes. Nonetheless, I passed. Of course, I think I got a D in whatever, in history. But I was able to get an A and a C in, you know, in economics and divinity, and also passed general papers. So I was taken on government scholarship. And at the time, actually, because like I said, we were coming from a polygamous family, we were 4 of us in senior 6. The others were at Caltech Academy.
Okay.
Now, when they got their results, they hadn't done as well. So I remember my dad, you know, I was asking for, because my father was then a permanent secretary at the Ministry of Housing. And I asked for a vehicle to go and get my results, and he said, "You're asking me for a vehicle, and yet you will have failed like others."
Because
he was mad with the results of the others. But when I got my results, he was excited.
Yes,
so
considering,
I
mean, he also thought you had to adjust midway.
Yes.
You know, after changing schools.
Possibly. I mean, they hadn't done so badly, but
Yes.
probably his expectations were a little higher.
Yeah.
So when I picked my results, I had done so well, and he was so excited. So he began to say I should go and study economics in Nairobi. So, you know, that aspect about, you know, going to study in Nairobi began. He began to...
so let's go back a bit. You now come to Nabingo second term. You've changed the combination.
Yes.
I was going to say course. And how do you adjust in that environment? It's an all... I know even Sacred Heart was an all girls. But now here, you sort of like switching places. You were in a science class before, you're probably now thinking, and different personalities come and characters come with these things, we must be honest.
Yes, true.
So you're in an arts class, different characters, different personalities. Did your character sort of fit in quick in making friends and adjusting to the class?
Somehow I've been slow, quiet, you know. Somehow I got integrated. I just got into the mix. Of course, senior 6, senior 5, senior 6, everybody is reading, putting, you know, those days, what do they call it? Winter.
Winter,
putting your feet in
the water, so
drinking coffee, not to sleep. Yes, and somehow we managed.
Yeah.
I believe the A came out of, you know, getting into, you know, yes.
Sweating, yeah.
Like I said, mocks weren't too good, and especially history.
Okay. And the environment of the school?
The environment was good.
Bad. Yeah.
The environment was good. Yeah.
And
I
you also
fitted
not
in. You can see that there is a trend that I was mainly in girls' schools.
Yes, that is true.
So somehow I was able to fit in. Yes.
Yeah. So were you in like any clubs as well here?
At Nabingo?
Yes. Or no time? You had to focus. You had to work harder than
I
before.
think I must have been involved in some activities. I don't recall really, but you know, at that time, the aspects about the Young Christian, you know, association,
yes.
maybe the choir, you know, those were the things that would take our time. We would pass time with that. Nabingo, you know, at the time also they used to give a girl in a higher class to look after the newcomers.
The
and,
newcomers or the young, yes.
Yeah, so I remember there were issues about girls wanting to be very close friends, and that a bit scared me a bit, because of course that time there wasn't any discussion about homosexuality or the transgender issues, but there were stories already coming out about
Girls being
a little
yes.
And
that was never a discussion, by
it wasn't discussed, but I remember fearing the person that I was given to help me, because it was a bit and I felt exactly. I felt a bit uncomfortable, especially because I was that calm, quiet,
Yes.
because even from home, my brothers, sisters would want to go for discos. There was a disco around Crested Towers, and I was the only one who would not want to go. So it was like, you're such a bore. Yes. Such a bore. But
even school parties, you weren't quite
Not really. And I remember we were joining university, hadn't had a boyfriend before, engaged with the intimacy or what. And it was like, how can you come to campus without having,
all your friends and colleagues
it is
that
like,
you met.
And then you begin to feel uncomfortable.
Yes. So wait, let's go back. Where did you go to university?
Makerere University.
University.
Yes.
That's where you wanted to go. That is where your headspace was.
That is what was there then.
Yes, you got.
Yes, I was taken, and yes, I was there. I was in Africa Hall, which was a ladies' hall, so I think I fitted in very well.
Yes.
Yes.
That is nice.
Yeah.
And what were you doing?
Bachelor of Arts. Yes. With those subjects, yes.
So you meet your friends, you realize, what is wrong? Am I not so social? Am I not so out there?
It was such an embarrassment, It was
it's just the pressure, really. If you
of course, I mean, at the time,
yes.
You feel like you don't belong, like, how can you come to campus without having slept with a boy, without having a boyfriend?
And then, all the talk.
Yes. And then you begin forging stories which are not there. Nonetheless, that did not. Yes, I mean, it was silly, it was so silly when you think about it. But yes, that's what happened. It did not, however, derail me.
Yes.
Yeah, it still did not derail me.
And eventually, though, at campus, you met someone, or
no?
Okay.
No.
You were focused on your books. You're the very calm.
I had fun.
Type. Yes.
I had fun. I had friends. We would go out, dance, but didn't get into a relationship.
You knew
no.
That, and sometimes.
And then, interestingly, when we were at campus, is when Lutaya came with, when he came to show HIV came and
that's all.
And I saw this man coming in a coat. There are two things that really stayed on my mind. One is Pastor Kayanja.
Yes.
Came, to the main hall to, to preach and all that. And his voice was like God's voice, it was being amplified and wow, with the singing and what, it was like, wow. That was the issue. Get saved. That is Catholics. I don't think I did. I did not.
Yes. Which year was this now?
That was 92 or about 92 years.
About 92. So the other person you remember is Lutaya.
Lutaya. He came, wearing a jacket which seemed so big. He was thin and he had, that time people with HIV had,
the signs that were very obvious. Yeah, that. Wow.
And it was such a scare. It was such a scare.
And hearing him talk about it.
Exactly. It seemed many people were saying he's lying, he just wants money.
Because they'd not yet experienced or seen how grave the thing can be.
However, I must say that we lost people. We lost students, friends, classmates that at the time also were in two relationships. Because I believe because HIV was still starting at the time, people did not know who was sick and who wasn't.
Who was sick and not, and then it was some kind of sexual network probably.
Exactly.
And you have no idea.
You have no idea.
Your partner.
I remember one of our friends, one time took us to her home. She'd gotten a man. She took us to her home. She cooked for us. And in 1 year, the girl was dead. And it is like, what? And then at that time also, there were many girls getting married, getting children. And for me, I don't think it was an option. I
Your
could
mind
just
was not-
see, I could just see, oh, how can I even dare this?
Oh my goodness.
Nonetheless, it seems so normal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just part of what, you know, how people are brought up, the exposures, the environment.
And at the time, people didn't know what or how, just like when COVID came.
Yes.
We didn't know what we were dealing with, how to deal with it, what was causing it. And I must say, that's quite a time to be at the university.
And then there was the issue, you know, these issues about sexual abuse at university, they are not new things. They are not new things because then we had lecturers who needed us to buy their books. One, if you didn't buy the books and you know, recopy, rewrite what was in the
And
book,
return it after.
then you would fail.
Oh
But
my.
also it was like, oh, these lecturers are sleeping with girls. It was rumors.
Yes.
I didn't get to know who, but I mean the names of the lecturers
They
were
usually
mentioned.
say there's no smoke without
There
fire.
were names that were mentioned. So these issues began long time.
Long time.
Many young girls must have, you know, been challenged. But I know that one time I went to see a gynecologist, and this man almost slept with me in the, you
Shush.
know, in the whatever, he, you know,
Which should have been a safe space.
which should have been a safe space. So probably because I was assertive and I said, doctor, no.
Otherwise,
I said, doctor, no, no, you know. So I imagine since that time, I began to imagine how many girls, how many women are actually abused in certain spaces that need to be safe, and how many of them actually voice out
what they've gone
what
through.
they have gone through or are able to say no, like I probably did.
Mrs. Susan here, Tumusiime, is telling us a time like this to be at the university. You know, university is the time when people seem to be figuring things out, trying to find themselves, probably trying to enjoy themselves along the way. And this is some of the things that probably saved her because of who she was as a person, as a character. She held back. We're not saying if you dated or if you had someone at the university, it's a bad thing. But sometimes who you are can save you.
True.
So don't be under pressure. Don't try to change in any way. Work within the kind of person you are. Now, a quick reminder, we are here at Daughter Exclusive on Ginger Road. It's a beautiful furniture house. They give us their space for us to bring you super soul sisters like Susan here to have conversations, to engage, you know, to talk about a couple of things. Check out the place. You never know, here on Ginger Road. Now you can find us, of course, on YouTube, Super Soul Sisters, UG. You can also find us. It's the S, yeah? My producer saying, don't forget, the S is more like a 3, Super Soul Sisters. UG, and of course we're also on Twitter, Super Soul Sisters. That is a 3, yes? Super Soul Sisters.
Triple S.
Yes. Now, of course, we shall keep coming back with a whole lot more of where you can find us and how, and also engage us. I'm still with Susan. Now, Susan, most people, even the boys, but would lean more into the young girls. And quite often, this is an age where people lose track, if not before.
True.
Yes. So your character saved you in a sense or in a way. But what did you learn from all of these things that were? It's like being in the shadows of so many things happening, and you're like there watching it all. What did you pick from all of this at the end?
I could say that the issue about being who you are stands out. If you are not easily, you know, taken up, swayed by many things, and because I remember when we were at Africa Hall, you know, girls being picked those days, you know, you would see, wow, and say maybe I wish I was, but you know, you're there looking, not trying it out. that
Yes.
could have been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And not to say that all those that went out or that going out is bad. The issue at the time was that, there would be, these men with big tummies, driving smart cars, and you
Daddies.
see girls going, well. And
Sugar daddies. I don't
many
know if they have,
university girls
yes.
didn't want the boys because they
the
had
boys,
nothing to
yeah.
offer. Yeah, so, yeah, I believe it's really being who you are.
I'm sticking to that.
And sticking to
basically.
that.
Okay.
After university, I got a job with environment. At the time, there was a National Environment Information Center as a research assistant.
Oh, nice.
And that was through the connection of my mom. She was working for the Ministry of Environment at the time. And working there, I learned bits and pieces of environment issues. But I also, I worked with UNDP, and then when I was now kind of settling on environment, I got a job with Centenary Bank.
Oh, wow.
I got a job with Centenary Bank as a loans officer, of course having
After
done
how,
economics.
after how long being...
At the environment,
yes.
it could be about 2 years or so.
Okay.
When I was taken up by the bank, Centenary Bank, I was taken to Mityana as a loans officer, trainee, stayed there for a few months, and they were going to open their Arua branch. So I was taken amongst 5 males, the only girl amongst 5 boys, to go and begin that branch. It was a project.
So now all the way to Arua?
All the way to Arua.
You didn't hesitate?
I didn't hesitate. I didn't hesitate.
You're used to the travel,
I'm
to
used
being
to,
here
yes.
and there.
I didn't hesitate, and I didn't think about it, so it was a job. I said, well. So I went and stayed in Arua for 1 year, about one year and something. And when
It must have been exciting.
it was exciting, it was challenging. Nonetheless, I think because of who I was able to live with these young men. I was able
There
to
were no
live.
bullies, were they?
There was no bullying. And what happened is that we got one house, and they gave me the self-contained room.
Yeah.
So we would eat together, we got a house help, eat together, do things together, then I would go and lock myself there.
Yeah.
So it was well.
Yeah.
They had girlfriends, and sometimes girlfriends would quarrel, then, so, but I locked myself inside
They're
there.
like, why are you sharing a house with the woman?
Yes, I had a challenge, of course, the aspect about being, male, female. My boss at the time also began try to, challenge me a bit.
Yeah.
And I reported him to the boss.
Some people fear to do that.
think
They're
some
like,
of
if I
us are
report,
fighters
I
forever. I came and reported to the MD. I don't know whether it was being naive or being childish or what, but that saved me.
No, but it saved you.
It saved me. Now, because I worked with environment, my boss then, I think, at the time, having seen me, when I joined the bank, he said, the bank is not good for me. He said, the way I know you and see you're not someone who can do monotonous work, the routine, you'll get bored. So he promised and agreed that the environment institution, National Environment Information Center at the time, pay for me masters in environment at Makerere University.
Nice.
So I resigned from the bank.
Yes, and then came back.
To do, the masters. Struggled with that, but learned a lot.
Because you were working and
Yes.
studying at the same time.
Okay, the working now was really, they let me, it was really loose.
Yeah.
But would give me, a stipend to
Yes,
live on,
that's
and I would contribute to to being a research assistant as and when was needed. And from there, I eventually got a job, with the World Food Program, and was taken to the north. Stayed there
went back.
Went back
You
to
went
the
back
north.
home
Now
every
to
time.
Gulu, yes. Stayed there 7 months, and an
wow.
opportunity came, a fellowship
Nice.
by NORAD So 7 months into the job, I asked, it was like, now there's this opportunity. Should I, shouldn't I? It was really,
just after,
yes.
yeah.
It was really, said, okay, I've done this master's in environment science from Makerere, but there's a fellowship in for a master's in natural resource management and sustainable agriculture. But there was this, I have a good job with the World Food Program.
Yes.
It's like, how can I leave this job? So I went and asked the deputy country rep, and she told me, Susan, take the opportunity. Jobs you will get.
Jobs you will get, yes.
So 7 months into World Food Program, I got out.
And you
went to Norway.
Okay.
I went to Norway for the master's, which was 24 months.
A second master's?
Yes.
Okay.
And finished that and returned.
Nice.
Yes, and then I got jobs, I did many things, came back to environment, which was NEMA now. Then worked also for the UNDP, the GEF program, supporting, as a research assistant while I looked for a job. Eventually, I got a job with development research and training. Stayed there for some time, did work, and progressed.
And,
I even taught at Chambogo University in the course on Bachelor of Adult and Community Education. I taught as a part-time.
That must have been interesting.
Yes.
To be on the other side and
teach.
Yes,
it was interesting. Yes. Yeah. So following that, I also got another job with the Windle Trust. So
you were very good at. I mean, you had the luck and the the blessings to get
that's
the jobs.
Very true.
Yes,
that's very true.
And you each job you got, you pushed your way.
I pushed.
You pushed.
I want to say that my experience with at that time with Windle Trust helped me form into the person that I am today, because it was really, really hard. You try to do your best. People, come round and, manipulate and say things.
Making it a little more difficult for you.
Yes, it was difficult. One time, actually, because of the so many things, the ambassador had just, the ambassador for the program that was supporting the program visited us. And, we were doing good work. Then I was called to say that, things are failing, blah, 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 blah. And my boss called me for a performance evaluation. And then I received a letter from the ambassador saying that, I'm so sorry to hear that you're leaving. So I was actually leaving without knowing that
you're leaving. Meanwhile, you're still working.
Yeah, so, yes. And another time, I was in charge of the office, and I was given monies. And trusting, working with colleagues, you trust them and give them money, and eventually everybody denies. Oh, wow. And you're made to pay the money. And the worst thing was also that, one time someone from our Kampala office came and asked me for a laptop. Over a weekend, I had already left the office on a Friday and said, I'm in Gulu, please help me with the laptop. And, so I allowed, because I okayed that. And when she was going, actually, she also called and said, I have returned the laptop. However, I don't know where the laptop went. And because I was head of office, I was made to pay for that lost laptop because everybody said no.
Wow.
So you see how building resilience began?
I can see that. Because no
you're
matter
going
what
through,
you tried and did.
Yes. And for the ambassador who at that time, was saying, I'm surprised you're leaving. I'm so sorry to hear you're leaving. I said,
hold on, am I leaving?
So eventually he told me, Susan, drive to Kampala. Don't tell anyone.
Exactly.
And I drove to Kampala and I met with him, and he turned things around. He caused an investigation, he caused, and he said to me that learn from today, never allow yourself to die alone when there is something, because there is always someone above.
Yes, definitely. Who can help?
Exactly.
Who can help?
So sometimes we are pushed in a corner, and we fear to talk.
No matter how hard you try.
Exactly. And you fear to talk. So this guy, intervened, assessed the situation, and I was,
Thank God. Now, of course, these are some of the things that I think many of us need to listen into right here.
Yes, true.
Sometimes people
You
think,
see someone and just
yes,
say, wow.
someone can say,
That
oh,
we've
I'm
gone
suffering
through,
at
you
my
know?
job, or this, or that. Now, Susan here is telling us, hey, I have been through this, probably even worse, when everyone denies and everyone
From heaven
accuses.
to, from you walk to heaven on foot.
You feel like you've run out of options. How do I get myself in a clean light for my work, for my job? Now, do not give up. Like Susan said, try and look for the right people to help you. Every time you sit back and say, but who will listen?
And do the right thing.
Then you end up
do the right thing.
I mean, you didn't even know. They told you, oh, sorry, you're leaving.
Sorry, I'm leaving, yes.
Now, if there was no contact or communication, who knows what would have happened. Now, these stories really do inspire us. You're not the only one. If you're out there and you're struggling with your job or business, or, because anyone can sabotage, It could be business or your job or whatever it is that you're doing out there. Now, a quick reminder to continue with us and, of course, give us updates on what you think here on YouTube. Go to Super Soul Sisters UG. Now, the S, yes, is like a 3. Yes, and then TikTok at Super Soul Sisters. Same thing. Do not get lost. It is like a 3. Yes, and then you can also get us on Insta, which then people call Instagram. It is super_soul_sisters. Please check us out. We're always putting some things there in case you miss anything for you to check out. And Susan has made a very good point. We've had a lot of points from this conversation, starting from being who you are, not changing who you are, to talking about, hey, even when you're able to succeed in some way, and maybe you've got the dream job, and maybe you've got the dream career, the dream business, there's going to be certain challenges. So when they help you out, you continue working. Were you transferred now to Kampala?
No, I wasn't transferred.
Wow.
I was kept there. Actually, what was done was, investigations, and I was cleared. And so
you are not afraid to go back?
No, I wasn't afraid to go back. Nonetheless, I must say that, there were many more challenges. One is I was even demoted at the time.
Because of all that
the
was going
funder
on.
said, no, give her a chance. But the other side had already made up their mind
to let you go.
And I had an accountant working with me at the time because I was a boss, and he would try to work out figures, but because I was consistent at checking, and he would say, oh, how come my manager is very whatever, a keen eye to detail. Because you're paying salaries, you find that the figures are by a certain amount, and it's like, why is this? So they try you out.
That is
so
true.
That also tells you about who you should be as a leader. Attention to detail is important.
It's important.
However, because I was also very, I think, naive, my colleagues began to sell scholarships because we were working on a scholarship program. So they began to sell scholarship.
And you were not aware?
I was not aware. That in itself caused me challenges. Because I had never thought or even imagined that people could sell scholarships. But people do that. And these are people that you work with, people that you trust. And that's why I talk about manipulation, intrigue, and so many things that happen in the workplace.
Yes.
Sometimes you're so focused on your work, you don't know, and you trust everyone.
You don't even realize that.
And Honorable Mao was the LC5 in Gulu at the time. And so,
which year was this now?
This was 2006, 7, 6, 8, between that time. And Honorable Mao, being in Gulu, was told about the institution selling scholarships. So he sent some people to inquire, and he actually said that, this one is so naive, because she comes from a good family, she
does not think people can do
By
this
the way,
thing.
I had not even thought about it. So he says this one is just naive, and because she's from a good family, she thinks people don't, Because when they first asked me who was in charge, I said no. Then he sent Honorable Mapinduzi, who is also now a an MP, to come and work with me to investigate. So on investigation, we found that it was true.
Wow.
That my colleagues were getting money
from
poor people in order to put them on the scholarship. Yet we had a system
that would be well-deserving, give the well-deserving.
Of course, maybe because also they were, male friends and all that, so they would probably manipulate the system. And then we had, of course, coming from the area, because the scholarship was looking at the broader north. So the names were also so similar that even if they put somebody else, you wouldn't realize. Yes. So of course we were able to tighten up the system. But my friends were taken to police. And their wives began crying to me. Their wives came from Kampala, it was people from Kampala, and
yes.
And it's like, Susan, we help. They all came to Gulu.
And you're thinking, how do I come in to help?
It was really a big challenge. It was a big challenge. I went to police at one point, found my colleagues, bare chests, shoes removed. I cried. It was such a big challenge. And word, of course, everywhere now that, these people are selling scholarships. But we were able to reorganize. Of course, the persons were eventually sent away. Like I said, I was demoted, not in a bad way. Rather, a white person came in to be the boss.
One of the, yes.
Yes,
so
they brought in some, an expatriate. So I eventually worked at that place up to the end, but also got so attached.
Years?
It was 5 years.
Wow.
Got so
and
attached.
That was the toughest job you had.
It was the toughest, and I keep saying
and the
that
longest
it made me.
Yes.
It made me, because I went through, I walked through the fire of hell and came out alive.
When you leave Window Trust, you've been there for 5 years, the hardest of all jobs you've had, but the longest you've stayed, because most of them you were doing 2 years, 1 year, getting more opportunities and other opportunities. But what made you stay in this particular one?
I had an uncle. He passed. He was a mentor and stood by me. So he kept helping me. He said, make sure you do this. He would guide me. When you give out money, make sure you write.
They should sign.
And you have a copy. Well, so he guided, he mentored. It was mentoring without. Yes. One of the other things is that we were working with young people that were coming from captivity, formerly abducted young people. I tell you. And this, goes to institutions. Yes. You take someone and say, okay, be an officer, and you don't train them, because you can imagine at the time you're coming from a job, but you've not been exposed to these formerly abducted young people. You don't know how. And my friend, hey, they were a handful.
Must have been. 5 years of being with them, where did you move to?
To Peace. I got on the last, actually Peace, Promoting Equality in African Schools, another charity, British charity. Yes, they advertised. And the time the project was ending in the north, I applied on the last day. Yes. 2 days later, I was called.
Oh, wow.
Called for interviews. As I was going back, I was called to the next level of interviews.
Oh, wow.
And 2 weeks, after the closure of the other project,
you were in.
I was country rep.
Nice. Now, being a country rep, did that lighten your load now? Because, or did you still have extra work to do?
It was also an organization that was building up.
Yes. So it took a lot of energy and time.
Systems and Nonetheless, we worked, because at the time they were working with young people. They were facilitating access, low cost education, for young people. Now, no longer scholarship, but building of schools so that, disadvantaged young people could access education. Came in when they had 5 schools, left when we had 24 schools all over the country.
And you were there for how long?
I was there for 4 years.
Okay. Is this when FAWE happened?
No, FAWE happened after Peace. I went to Nurture Africa, which was also working as country rep, looking at disadvantaged young people affected and infected by HIV/AIDS, and then of course parents also, suffering challenges. So I stayed there for about a year and something, and then FAWE comes by.
Put you on board. And of course, FAWE is the Forum for African Women Educationalists.
Uganda chapter.
Yes. So what does this involve or entail?
The mandate is ensuring girls' participation in education. And this is because of the vulnerability of girls. In the 90s, the focus was mainly on boys.
Yes.
And so 5 female ministers of education came together and said, no, we must support and enhance girls' education.
Yeah.
We must ensure that girls participate in education. So FAWE is a Pan-African organization with 34 chapters.
Okay.
So FAWE Uganda is part of the 34 chapters. And when FAWE started, the issue was how can we get data to create programs for girls so that girls and female teachers
Can be involved.
can be supported.
Okay. Amidst all of this, when did you become Mrs. Tumusiime?
I became Mrs. Tumusiime in 1997.
Oh, really? So all this time you're moving, working, moving, and you're married and you're starting a family?
Yes. I
Interesting.
became Mrs. Tumusiime in 1997. That's when I got traditionally married and got formally wedded in 2000.
So
yes.
what do you move by? What pushes you as a mother, as a wife, and as a working woman who has a goal, of course, to help out her community?
The experience, the exposure have actually enabled me to be open-minded, to be objective, and to see what society needs. If I say exposure, it goes to, the entire frame.
Yes, that
you
is
know,
true.
school and the workplaces, the experiences within those workplaces. Sometimes I keep saying to people that, I've fought so much, I'm tired of fighting. Because
Yeah.
everywhere you go, you have to fight for you to be able to manage. Today, as I work with young people, I see the pain that many young people have because probably their families cannot support them. Probably the situation and circumstances around them in schools are challenging. The spouses they have are challenging them. So you see that many people will say, why do you focus on girls? But the vulnerability of girls as you work with them is very diverse. So we have a lot of issues that are happening. Girls are challenged and they get pregnant, many of them because of the circumstances. When FAWE did a study on the situation of an impact of COVID-19 on school-going girls and young women, and we found that 67% of the girls were pushed to have intimate relationships with men so that they could look after their families.
Oh dear.
Over 80, about 89 were abused when at home by their parents, family, friends, etc. And they can't report because they blame themselves. But at the same time, people are saying, oh, you are concentrating on girls and not the boys. As FAWE, we deal with both boys and girls, but of course our mandate is really girls' participation in education.
Education, yes.
That's the primary.
Yeah.
So we do a 70-30. We are not leaving the boys behind, but we are focusing
On the more
girls,
challenged
on the vulnerability of the girls, but supporting them. Because today, the National Development Plan 3 is talking about human capital development. And we are challenged. If all the girls are going to be pregnant and out of school, if all our girls are going to be house helps, then what kind of a nation are we going to have?
Yes.
If you go to the airport every other day, it is girls that are going out. Many
Yeah.
of them not very educated. So education is the thing.
Thank you so much, Namasa. We do here commend you for the work that you're doing. Now, like we always say, and for some reason, I think I will stop it. Sometimes I find it important or necessary to clarify that this is not just for the girl child
No.
or for the women. It is for the men too and the boys to see what can happen when we see our young girls grow to blossom into amazing people.
Exactly.
People who put back in their community, put back to their society. And of course, in turn, if you have a good woman, you have a good man.
True.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, Susan. Now, of course, our super soul sister today, and I'm pretty sure you've learned something. Well, I hope you've learned something from this. Susan Opok Tumusiime, Mrs. Susan.
A Ugandan.
A Ugandan, yes, just to be
because,
clear.
from north, from east, from west, you
We are all the
see.
same. Yes,
so
we're all the same in one.
Yeah.
And of course, we do appreciate you for watching here, Super Soul Sisters, the entire team, and me. Do wish you a good night. My name is Rowena Kachumba.